300 National Guard troops, Chicago, federal agents, a woman shot, all in less than 24 hours. This isn't a movie. This isn't some dystopian TV show. This is America right now. President Donald Trump has just authorized the deployment of 300 National Guard troops to Chicago, citing out-of-control crime and what he calls lawlessness in Democrat-led cities. Federal immigration authorities say they shot an armed woman after cars ran into their vehicles during protests. State leaders call this an abuse of power, and a federal judge has already blocked a similar move in Portland. So what's really happening here? Why is Chicago the next battleground? And what does the law actually say about deploying troops inside American cities? Let's start with the basics. 4 hours ago, President Trump signed off on 300 National Guard troops heading to Chicago. His White House spokesperson, Abigail Jackson, said this was to protect federal officers and assets amid ongoing violent riots and lawlessness. But here's a twist. National Guard troops are typically deployed by a state's governor, not the president. In this case, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat, did not request these troops. In fact, he called the move an attempt to manufacture a crisis that sets up a direct clash. Federal authority versus state sovereignty. And this isn't just politics, it's about the Constitution. Under U.S. law, the federal government's ability to deploy the military inside the country is extremely limited. The Posse Comitatus Act, a law dating back to 1878, says the military can be used for domestic law enforcement without explicit authorization. The Insurrection Act is one of the few exceptions. But here's the key. National Guard troops normally report to governors, not the president. When a governor calls them up, they're under state control. When the president federalizes them, they're under federal control, but only under certain conditions. That's why Judge Karen Immergut in Portland blocked the Trump administration from sending 200 troops there last week. She wrote that Trump's statements were untethered to the facts and that the move risked blurring the line between civil and military power to the detriment of this nation. Chicago has been on Trump's radar for months. He has repeatedly threatened to send in the troops, pointing to crime and shootings. And yes, Chicago's homicide rate is higher than the national average. Over the Labor Day weekend alone, 58 people were shot, 8 fatally. But here's the nuance. Violent crime in Chicago has actually fallen significantly over the past 2 years. Between January and June this year, the homicide rate was down by a third compared with the same period last year, according to the Council on Criminal Justice. So the numbers are complicated. Chicago has real challenges, but it's not some war zone out of a movie. Yet that's exactly the narrative being used to justify the troop deployment. And then that's what happened just before the troop authorization. U.S. Border Patrol personnel say they shot a woman in Chicago after a group of people rammed cars into immigration enforcement vehicles. They claim she was armed.